Sly, Nemo, and the Cloud: The Amazing Journey of a Boy and His Dog by Jude Sylvester and illustrated by Jude and Leo Sylvester. It hadn't been very far on their journey when Sly and Nemo stopped to have a drink of water out of Sly's canteen. First, he took a little gulp, and then he poured some out into his hand for Nemo to lap up. Sly almost poured out all the water for Nemo. Dogs get really thirsty, you know. Nemo thanked Sly with a big kiss across his face, and before they knew it, they were on their way again. Sly wasn't worried about not having enough water because he knew that there was a small stream on the other side of the trees where they usually could get all the clean, fresh spring water that they desired, as long as it wasn't dried up. It tasted so much better than the water he brought from home. He knew because he'd been there before with Nemo. But that's not why they were going on the journey that day. "I sure hope we find what it is we're looking for," said Sly. "We will," replied Nemo. "We just have to keep looking." They kept looking and looking, but they still couldn't find what it was they were looking for. Sly was beginning to doubt himself. He didn't really know what it was they were looking for anymore. He thought that maybe they never did know what it was they were looking for to begin with. But Nemo never doubted even for a second. He kept telling Sly that they would find it and they just had to keep looking. They finally reached the other side of the trees where the stream was, and they each drank all the water they desired. It was very strange because Sly stopped worrying about what it was they were looking for anymore. He filled up his canteen and just sat there on the stream's bank and waited for Nemo to finish drinking. After a while, Nemo had all the water that he could. Sly was sure that Nemo would have completely drank the entire stream, but for some reason the water in the stream was just as high as it was when they got there. "I can't believe it, Nemo," shouted Sly. "You drank more water this time than you did last time, but the stream is still going. This is amazing. We could stay here forever and have all the water we want." "But we already have all the water we want, Sly," said Nemo. "Yeah, but now we could have even more," exclaimed Sly. "It can be all ours. All we have to do is live here from now on. We could build a house over there, and we could make swings, and we could catch fish and animals to eat, and we could take baths in the stream, and we could make a kite out of my backpack. It would be wonderful." Nemo replied, "But Sly, then we would have to cut down all these trees for firewood, and we would have to take these animals' lives in order to eat them, and we would get the stream dirty if we took baths in it. Plus, what if the stream dried up someday?" "Impossible," Nemo shouted Sly. "Just look upstream. It goes on forever. It'll never dry up." "Well, it has to begin somewhere," said Nemo. Sly knew that Nemo was right. He stared up the stream as far as his eyes could let him until only pure imagination could tell the difference between the sky and the stream. It was then that he truly knew something, but he couldn't quite understand what it was that he knew. He grabbed his canteen and put it in his backpack and then began walking upstream along the bank. Sly wanted to find what it was they were looking for all along. He wanted to find the beginning of the stream. They kept on walking, and not once did they look back. He knew that they didn't have to look back to see how far they had actually come. Occasionally, they would slow down to get a drink and refill the canteen with water, but they never stopped. They walked at the pace of the sun because they knew that if they would be too afraid to go on if it got dark out. They made sure not to go too fast either because then they would have to wait for the sun to catch back up with them. Nobody knows how far they walked, not even them. But they know that they walked as far as they possibly could. Then all of a sudden it was right in front of them. If there was a better way to describe how it happened, then that's how it would have been described. But there really is no other way to describe it because the true language needed to describe it does not consist of words. Sly and Nemo had reached the beginning of the stream. "We made it, Nemo. But what is it?" whispered Sly. "I don't know," answered Nemo. "Can't be what I think it is," says Sly. "I've never seen one so low before." "You two don't have to whisper like that. Besides, it's kind of rude. It's not as bad as talking behind my back, but it's still not good," said the cloud. She had a beautiful voice, the kind that everyone dreams of hearing when they have a story read to them before they go to sleep at night. "I'm terribly sorry," said Sly. "We didn't know you could hear us." "Well then, would that make it okay for you to talk about someone even if they couldn't hear you?" asked the cloud. "Sometimes it's okay if I'm sharing their beauty. It's just that we've never seen a real cloud before. We've never seen one down so low that we were actually able to speak with her. It's very nice to meet you. My name is Sly and this is Nemo. What is your name?" asked Sly. "Name?" inquired the cloud. "I guess I don't have a name. Nobody ever gave me one. Where I come from, we just play and talk to each other. We know who everybody is without us having to assign names." "That's very different than it is down here," said Sly. "Everyone down here is always calling everybody else names." "I don't think I'd like it down here," said the cloud. Sometimes we don't like it either, but we have learned to love it. Maybe we can give you a name while you are here. We could give you a beautiful name, exclaimed Sly. How would you choose it, and why do I need one? Asked the cloud. Well, said Sly, you need a name because your friends down here need to know what to call you. Suppose another cloud was here. We would have to be able to tell the difference between the two of you. Your name wouldn't be who you are. It would just be the best way for someone else to describe who you are and how to address you. So what shall Nemo and I call you? Maybe we should come up with your name by what it is that you do. We know that you come from way up high and that you rain. You are right about me coming from way up high, but I don't always rain like this too often. My tears only started this stream because I fell down here long ago, and I don't think I will ever be able to climb back up again. I am very tired and I keep falling lower and lower. I'm afraid that pretty soon I'll cry myself into a stream and die. I'm sorry for being so sad. I don't mean to make you feel unhappy, sighed the cloud. You aren't making us unhappy, said Sly. You brought us this beautiful stream, and we followed it as far as we could to find what it was we were looking for, the beginning. We didn't think we were ever going to find it, but we never gave up and we kept on looking and we found you. You are what we were looking for. If you die in the stream, then we will have lost everything that we spent our entire journey looking for. We're going to help you live. But how can you help me now? It's too late, I think, said the cloud hopelessly. Time doesn't exist when you believe in something, said Sly. Nemo and Sly didn't see it with their own eyes, but they knew that the cloud had smiled. Her grayness disappeared into her puffy belly and she became light. Nemo sat up glowing. We will call you Sky Dreamer. That's where you're from, where you want to go, and where you will live your dreams once again. Thank you oh so much, Sly and Nemo, my friends. It's the most beautiful name ever, she smiled. It had gotten so late that Sly and Nemo didn't even realize that the sun had passed over them a long time ago and now was coming back again. When they were talking with Sky Dreamer, they seemed to ignore their fears of the darkness, and for the first time in their lives, they had entered into the nighttime in total peace. Usually, they would be up at night worrying about future monsters and past goblins until they finally would fall asleep, but that night they didn't even remember falling asleep. Instead of hopelessly thinking about how to save themselves from those mind creatures, they were dreaming about ways to help their new friend find her way home. Sly got up and immediately noticed that Sky Dreamer was even lower than before, but she was still floating about 4 feet above the ground. She was still dropping very slowly, though, maybe an inch or so every hour. Sly and Nemo ran beneath her and began to hold her up so she wouldn't sink any further. She was nice and cool to the touch. Sly raised his arms slightly above his head so he wouldn't get all soaked. Then he stuck out his leg a little to the side so that Nemo would be able to put up his front paws in order to reach higher and help hold Sky Dreamer up with his nose. Sky Dreamer was very thankful for their help because it allowed her to be able to rest while they held her up. It made her so joyful that she couldn't hold back her tears, and Sly and Nemo got drenched. But they didn't mind. It made them all laugh until their cheeks got tired. Sky Dreamer, I've never heard of a fallen cloud before. How did you fall out of the sky? Asked Sly. Well, she said, a long, long time ago, I was floating over some towns where I hadn't rained in a while. Their streams and lakes were getting lower, the grass was dying, the animals were thirsty, and everything had become so dry that I was afraid it would all die, especially if there was a fire. I started to give them rain, and it was beautiful. I remember being warned by some of the other clouds that I shouldn't get too close to the ground, but everyone and everything had come out to play in my rain. I couldn't help myself. I wanted to be more a part of it all. I kept getting closer and closer, and I could actually see the smiles. Then I heard a noise from below, maybe from a small volcano, and before I knew it, some ash and dark smoke had gotten inside of me. My rain stopped, and I tried desperately to rise, but the smoke was too heavy, and I fell. I made my way over here to this forest to die. I didn't want to become fog for people to make art out of. I have always been a cloud, and as long as I live, I will be one. Sly could tell that Sky Dreamer was still sinking, even though he and Nemo were holding her up. They had been holding her for quite some time now, and they were getting very tired. Sly said to himself that he was going to keep trying to hold her up no matter how tired he gets, but he knew that he was going to have to think of something else or Sky Dreamer was going to die soon. Sly didn't want Sky Dreamer to get discouraged, so he decided not to tell her that she was still sinking even with Nemo and him underneath holding her. Sly's arms were way too tired, but Nemo was still fine. That's how he got his name Nemo. It tells what he does. He's a fighter and a striver for the good, and he never gets tired. So Sly went and grabbed a big rock and brought it over for Nemo to stand on so he could reach Sky Dreamer without using Sly's leg for support. Nemo stood up on the rock and continued to hold up Sky Dreamer, even though he too knew she was still falling lower. Sly was beginning to get a little anxious until he remembered his own name and why he had it. He remembered how everyone is named, not by who they are, but by what they do. He was called Sly because he was clever. He began thinking about how he was going to get Sky Dreamer back to her home in the sky. He knew that all the smoke inside her had already disappeared and washed away with her tears after she fell down here. The only thing that was keeping her down was Sky Dreamer herself. She had the will to rise, she just didn't have the faith that she could do it. But as long as she had friends, she still had a chance. Sly understood that he didn't have the power to just send Sky Dreamer home to the sky. The power was hers and only hers. He kept walking back and forth, trying to think of different ways to save his friend, but every time he came up with an idea, there was always a sure reason for it to fail. How could he help Sky Dreamer see that she could rise back to her home? How could he give her that power without telling her that it was hers to begin with? If he just told her that the power was hers, then she would surely not believe him and she would die. He had to show her. Then all of a sudden it happened. Just like when Nemo first stumbled upon what it was they were looking for when they first saw Sky Dreamer at the beginning of the stream. There is no better way to describe how Sly got his idea except that it just came to him. Let it be sworn that if there were any other way to describe it, then it would have been described that way. But human words alone can't illustrate true meaning. Before Sly went back to where Nemo was holding up Sky Dreamer with his nose, he had to get some things together first. He got a sweatshirt out of his backpack, he cut off the sleeves and tore up along the side seam of the body part so it could be opened as big as a flag. Then he poked a bunch of tiny holes in it, and he attached it to two sticks. It looked like a giant open scroll. Then he went out to spread the word and gather a bunch of the animals around to come and help his friend get back home. None of the other animals knew exactly what was going on, but they went anyway. Sly made it back to where Sky Dreamer was, and he noticed that Nemo didn't need the rock any longer to stand on to hold her up because she had fallen another 1.5 feet. Sly couldn't believe that he'd been gone that long. He was going to have to hurry, but he was also going to have to make sure that his plan worked, or Sky Dreamer would be sure to die. "Where have you been?" asked Sky Dreamer. "Nemo and I were starting to think you were lost, but we didn't know where to look for you." "I was lost," said Sly, "but I don't think you would have been able to find me. Usually, if I keep looking long enough, I'm bound to find whatever it is I'm looking for, even if it's myself." "But it's a lot easier when you've got some friends to help you," said Sky Dreamer. "Exactly," replied Sly. "I found out how to get you back home to the sky." "Oh," sighed Sky Dreamer, "as much as I wish to, I don't think that I'm ever going to ever return home. I know you guys are trying to help me and hold me up longer so that I can rest, but the truth is that I'm still falling lower and lower. I'm very sick of all the volcano ash and smoke. It's no use to try and save me now. Some things are just meant to be the way they are. It won't be much longer until I become a sourceless stream." "That's not true," exclaimed Sly. "Some things are meant to be the way they are, and that's why you're going back home. You are meant to be a cloud, Sky Dreamer." Sly reached down and grabbed the device he made with his sweatshirt and the two sticks. "Here," he said, "I can use this to filter out all the ash and smoke from your body." Then he lifted it up and started running back and forth underneath Sky Dreamer. "That tickles," she laughed, "but is it really working?" "It's absolutely working," Sly cheered. "The cloth is turning completely dark and you are getting lighter and lighter. Just one more time through and it'll all be gone." Oh my," Sky Dreamer said. "I can feel it. I can already feel the difference. I feel lighter and cleaner and healthier. I can't believe it. It's working. It's really working." "That's it. It's all gone," said Sly. He showed her the other side of the cloth so it looked like it had changed a much darker shade. She was smiling all right, but she began to wonder how she was going to rise back up to the sky. She hadn't moved for so long that she wasn't sure if she could do it. "Don't worry," said Sly as if he read her mind. "I have brought a few other friends of yours who want to help too. They are all very grateful to you for bringing them rain all these years, and they want to help you find your way back home." Then out from behind all the trees and bushes came hundreds and hundreds of animals. There were all different kinds. There were foxes, frogs, squirrels, birds, snakes, turtles, deer, mice, ants, bears, raccoons, and even butterflies. There were even some animals Sly and Nemo had never even seen before. They all huddled together underneath Sky Dreamer. I don't know what to say, said Sky Dreamer. I got us all together to help you get home, Sky Dreamer, said Sly, looking up. You are our friend, and we will miss your presence with us down here. But friends don't just exist to our physical senses. So whether you pass on into a stream or rise back up as a cloud, we will remember you no matter what as Sky Dreamer. But we aren't going to just sit here and watch you fall when we know that you can rise above and fly again. They all took a deep breath, and at the same time they closed their eyes and blew upwards as hard and as long as they possibly could exhale. Nemo and Sly and all the other animals. Sly knew that all the breaths in the world wouldn't be able to make Sky Dreamer rise again unless she believed that she could. And when Sly opened his eyes after the very last bit of wind, he saw that she had disappeared. He and Nemo both looked up at the fluffy white waters that roamed the sky, and a teardrop made them laugh to themselves. She made it back home. She really made it. Sly picked up his things, and he and Nemo headed home. They seemed to have found what it was they were looking for, and though they can't see Sky Dreamer anymore, they know she exists. Maybe one day she'll be the one to hold them above her head. The end.